All right, folks, we're recording. Let's get cranking. Good morning, everybody. We got folks in here in the conference room. We got some folks online. So thanks for taking the time out today. Today, we're going to talk about working with sellers, which I hope you all love and adore and never want to work with buyers, right? I hate working with buyers. So this is why I told them I'll teach this class. I like sellers. Come on, mate. Well, all right. Here we go. Our agenda today, we're going to learn how to set expectations, which has been a fault of mine before going into listing appointments. And that ends up with hurt feelings sometimes and sour taste in people's mouths. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the homework you got to do before you go to a meeting. What you take to your appointment makes you look professional, makes you look like you know what you're doing. You don't want to have to go back and say, oh, I forgot my tape measure, or I forgot my MLS input sheet. I'll be back. Talk about what to do at the appointment. And then probably just as important as setting expectation is follow-up. How are you going to follow up in a systematic way with your clients? So everybody's happy. Nowadays, things are happening so fast that you're always in contact with people, but there'll come a day when that doesn't happen and you actually have a listing last for longer than a month, and you'll have to figure out a way to talk to your sellers and what to say to them. Setting expectations. First thing you do, when I put question marks up there, what is the first thing you do with a seller? Before you talk any expectations at all. There you go. Working with real estate. Cheryl, God, I wish I'd give you some candy, but evidently they ate it all. Working with real estate, first thing you go over, because when you start talking about expectations, you start talking about their needs and their wants, then they're talking about themselves, right? They're not talking about a property. When the conversation goes from the property to the person, then it is, you have to make sure you fill out you're working with real estate agents. And thankfully the real estate commission has approved the new ones, so they're nice, they're simple. They're only one page. They're not as intimidating. Anybody have any questions on working with real estate agent disclosure? I don't want to assume. We have seen some documents come through Melissa, and Melissa Jacqueline's here, that leads us to believe people don't know how to fill it out. So if anybody's got any questions, we're all family here, ask away. All right. So one thing you got to do is understand their motivation. Why are they calling you to list their house? Why are they calling you for an appointment? Are they doing it because they got to move? They got to move for a job. They're just fishing. They're just curious. Are they wasting your time? We're certainly going to talk about that. One thing you don't want to do is, especially nowadays, we were just talking before this started, prices are still going bonkers, and some people may just want to know what their house is worth. I'm not coming over to tell you what your house is worth. I won't do it. So don't work for free. A lot of people will work for free. A lot of people give up information for free, and then those folks will turn around and sell it to Open Door or sell it by themselves. So make sure all the decision makers are present when you go to the listing appointment. I've got one now in Rock Hill, and on the deed is a lady and her husband. Well, they are now divorced and remarried, and the husband is getting divorced again. So I had to contact an attorney, like, I have no idea who should be signing what. And it's South Carolina. So I contacted Nick. Nick got me in touch with Crosby, who's licensed in South Carolina, and they got it handled. So I knew who to send the listing agreement to.
All those spouses?
That's what I thought, but it was not. So their divorce was going to go through October 19th. I guess that's when it was final. But South Carolina, it's only the people on the deed. So it's the husband and the wife that are now divorced. And then we're going to get the husband to sign a quitclaim deed. So it'll only have to be the wife. I'm like, praise the Lord, I'm going to do some more business in South Carolina. So, but you got to figure that out. You got to know who's going to be, who's got to be present. Make sure you price the home to sell. This is a sticky situation nowadays, and I'm more conservative probably than most people. I just got my home refinanced, and we moved in last year. And of course, they did what they call an appraisal, and it came back, and I'm like, there is no way my house is worth that much money. I would never be able to sell it, but we're not planning to sell for a while anyway. Well, our neighbors have about 1,000 square foot smaller house, and they're using a relocation firm because they're relocating the Asheville area, and they put theirs on the market for what we paid for ours last year. And I'm like, well, if you use the appraisal for our house and this house, maybe, but if I would have listed their house, I probably would have listed it $35,000, $45,000 cheaper than what they got on it right now. But I'm super conservative because it doesn't do anybody any good for it to sit there and then you look bad and like, why is your realtor's sign still in the yard? You know. So properly set expectations. Make sure you talk to your sellers and let them know what to expect during the process. Make sure just because you give them a copy of what to expect in a home inspection doesn't mean they read it. Make sure you're going through, you don't need to be here for the home inspection. Here's who could show up for the home inspection. I had an instance 3-4 years ago. My sellers, we had a home that had under contract, a home inspection come. My sellers went back to the house. It was her mom's house that was selling. She went back to the house after the home inspection was supposed to be over. They were still there. There were general contractor, the buyers, the agent. So there was probably 6 or 7 people there. And she absolutely went into a rage, cussed out the realtor, almost got into a physical altercation with the realtor. And needless to say, it ruined the deal. So now I'm very specific on here's what's going to happen. And I hate to sound like a teacher to a 8-year-old, but here's what's going to happen with the home inspection. Don't take it personal. Calm down. Take a little blue pill and just calm down if you need to. But I mean, you learn over so many years where your potholes could be. And that's a pothole for me because I don't ever want that call. I was going on vacation and the agent called me and she was upset. I mean, very upset because she about got beat up at a home inspection. I'm like, okay, I can understand that. All right, lastly, when you're setting expectations with your sellers, I'll put a little lock thing on it. There's no reason you can't go ahead and lock up that listing. Go ahead and send them the listing paperwork. So what if you're not going to sell it or put it on the market for a couple of months? I've got some sellers right now in my neighborhood. They have no idea where they're going to live. They're moving up to the Richmond area, but they don't have a place to go. They don't have an apartment. But I went ahead and met with them, told them what their house was worth. And I said, listen, we can go ahead and sign the paperwork. We just won't market it yet. That way, if I hear of somebody moving down here, I can let them know. Just present it to them like that. That way you've got the listing and you don't let Open Door and Knock and For Sale by Owners, you don't let those people come in. You got a legally binding contract now. And I'm still I've been sitting on that listing for 2 months, I guess, because they don't want to sell it to an investor. They want to sell it to an individual. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. Go ahead and lock it up. If you let them get out of your sites without that listing, they're going to have, I mean, you see Open Door, not Open Door. What's the other one? Yeah, Mark Spain or Open Door. Gosh, there's another one. They're on Channel 9 News. Every morning I see them. So they're going to get that message pounded in their head. So why not go ahead and lock it up so it doesn't matter? Any questions so far? Anybody online there? Y'all awake? Y'all got your cameras off. I'm a little concerned that you're all just sleeping on me.
I'm listening, but I'm driving.
Oh, Lynette, honey, be careful.
I'm riding. My husband's driving. I'm heading to the beach.
Tell Herman to be careful.
I will.
All right, setting expectations. Understand their motivation. And this, you're going to look at me and we're going to go through this slide and you're going to think this doesn't apply nowadays. Because my folks are going to sell, they're going to move out immediately, and everything's going to be done in 35 days. Maybe, maybe not. And what are you going to do when the market slows down? What are you going to do when all of these forbearance properties hit the market and properties aren't selling in 30 or 45 days? So understand their motivation. Are they looking to make money? What's the next question you're going to ask them? Where are you going? Yeah, where are you going to move to? Can I help you? Do you have an agent in Richmond? Yeah. Do you have an agent in Asheville? I can help you. A couple of questions to use to understand their motivation. How long have you been thinking of putting your house up for sale? You're really just trying to dig to the bottom of the reason they're selling their house. Do you want me to prepare you a CMA which outlines the current market value for your home? If they tell me yes, my next question is going to be, well, let's go ahead and sign the listing agreement and then I can do that for you. I'm going to tell them I can't do it without a listing agreement. I'm going to try to get that listing before I leave that, that first conversation with them. A few of these buyers will be ready to buy within just days. Is that too fast for you? You gotta set their expectations. As soon as we stick that sign in the ground, you better be ready, have your bags packed, hit the trail, right? You better be ready to go. After we meet and you have had an opportunity to review our home selling system, when are you ready to list? Does anybody in here have a home selling system that they use? I was talking to my real estate coach yesterday, my first conversation, and he was asking me about listings. And I was like, usually when they call me, they're ready to list. So I'm going and getting the listing. I may have been in 2 conversations with sellers over my 7 years that they are actually interviewing agents. I don't know. What about you guys? Have you ever been in that scenario? Once? You ever been in that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a system to show them, honestly. Yeah, right. It may not be a bad idea. The one I was in, we did present them with our system. we had something to show them, and it worked. We got the listing. So just make sure you put that sense of urgency in them. As soon as we put it live, it's gonna go, unless it stinks, cluttered, has green carpet, all those things. So you're just setting those expectations for them. Where do you want to move after you sell? We just talked about that. Maybe you can help them. They're moving to Richmond, like we just talked. Refer them. Tell them you have some folks in office that know some agents in Richmond. Hopefully you do. I don't know anybody in Richmond, but Raleigh, I've got contacts in Raleigh. I got contacts down the coast. So maybe you can get a referral fee out of it. That's an easy way to do business. That's the best way to do business, I think. Any questions on setting expectations? How soon do you want to move? You got to explain the timeline of how everything's going to happen. So make sure you tell them, and I've had this happen. How soon do I need to be out of my house? You think that's a dumb question. It is kind of a dumb question. People should know that these days. But you tell them you got to be out before the walkthrough. You need to be out before the walkthrough. A lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people haven't sold a house in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So you got to explain all the steps to them. If they're ready to move, then great, let's list it. If they're not, then you may want to hold on. Let's go ahead and get the listing agreement signed, and we'll be ready to pull the trigger and just stick the sign in the ground when you're ready. If one of my buyers offers you the price you want, are you ready to accept the offer? Make sure they're not playing games with you. Make sure they are serious about selling and not just kicking the tires. What's the price range you think you're willing to accept? That helps you price it. That helps you figure out if they're completely out in left field with their price, or maybe you come in underpriced like we talked about with the house next door. Can you describe your home for me? That way you're getting a second opinion on what you see after you walk through the house. Maybe they forgot to tell you about the wet spot in the ceiling that they painted over that you can't see anymore. Maybe we had mold in the crawl space or something along that line. It just gives you a second set of eyes to look through the house. Our meeting will require about 1 hour of time. Is that okay? Just trying to be respectful of them, let them know, again, setting expectations. Here's what to expect, Melissa, when I come to your house to list your house, it'll take me about an hour. Is that okay?
Yes.
Wonderful. Any questions on setting expectation? I see Stephanie's awake. That's a good thing. Hey, Stephanie. The rest of you folks, I'm still not sure you're awake, but all right. Let's talk about doing your homework before you go. You always got to pull the deed, right? You got to figure out who is actually selling the property. I've had an instance before, a lady that used to work with us had an instance before where the person that contacted her to sell the house wasn't actually the one that owned the house. So she pulled the deed and found out the son was trying to sell it out from under the mother. Yeah, so you don't want to get into that. Our E&O does not cover that. So you're in trouble on your own. Pull the septic permits. Does everybody know how to get a septic permit? And if you don't, that's fine. We can help you with that. They're usually relatively easy.
Chris,
Hey, Susan.
hey, on the septic permits, I'm finding that the city offices only keep them like 3 years back. And most everybody that I've dealt with is more than that. So we're not able to get septic permits.
That's fine. I just make a note of it in the MLS that municipalities said they don't have a record of it.
Okay.
I don't see anything wrong with that. I mean, if that's what the municipality's telling you, you did your job, right?
Right.
Melissa?
Yeah.
I haven't seen it 3 years. I think they've told me, I think Rowan County told me 8 years before. But
Cabarrus
3 years,
County
that's
said
short.
3. That's
Who?
what I thought. I think it's Cabarrus County. I'll have to go
Okay.
back and verify that, but
Okay.
yeah. Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you. I had one in Rowan County. It was built in 1910 and it had been in the same family. And you could tell where they had added on. I mean, back then they didn't have bathrooms, right? They didn't have indoor plumbing. You could tell where they added bathroom on. And I called the county and like, pardon my language, he's like, and the guy at Rowan County told me, he's like, I said, what am I supposed to do? He's like, they didn't have record of it. And the guy at Rowan County literally told me, I don't give a shit what you do with it. I'm like, fine with me. 15 bedrooms, 84 bathrooms, 1,400 square feet.
Yeah, that sounds horrible.
I'm like, all right, that's fine. That's what we'll do then. So look up zoning. Make sure your folks are in compliance. That's easy pull. That's on your GIS site. That's pretty available. Make sure, especially Melissa's holding her finger up. But
I got a question on that.
ask.
I don't know if anybody can hear me, but if you pull it up and you pull up the GIS or whatever, and it says it's zoned for light industrial
Mhm.
or residential,
Mhm.
you have a choice or whatever. And then you contact the city that the house is actually located in, and the city's telling you strictly only residential.
Okay.
Now what? You can only go by the city. You cannot list it as commercial and residential. You can only list as residential
If the use is only residential, then
for the
yes,
city.
for the city. Yeah.
But I think it was GIS pulls up. Remember
We
the one
know
I showed you the
GIS
other
is not,
day?
yeah, GIS is not always right.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So you-
no, I would,
In any situation, would you go city, Trump
Yeah.
County, right?
who's got jurisdiction? So was that Kannapolis or was that Landis?
Landis.
Landis tell you they had jurisdiction over it?
I'm going off of what another agent sent me. And
I would
they
imagine that would be
said
Landis.
the city of Landis. Well, county, so she checked with county. County said, this is what it is, but you need to check with Landis. So she checked with Landis and
You
Landis
said
said,
only,
this is
residential.
only residential.
okay.
I told her to be safe, stick with what Landis said.
I would stick with what Landis said. Yeah, so Melissa ran into a scenario where it was zoned light industrial and residential. Is that
Yeah,
right?
and
That's,
yeah, as long as the house is,
it doesn't usually have two
standing, right?
zonings.
remember what I showed you? Remember?
Did you, was
It
the property
Landis.
split or something? I mean,
It was just on Main Street Landis.
Uh-huh.
Said light industrial, so I had to contact.
Uh-huh.
They said it could be used for both, and that's scenario. If somebody bought it residential.
Yeah.
Now.
all right, hold on, this is,
You see that? That's what we pulled. And so she verified with the county, and the county told her she to reach out to Landis.
well, it's zoned light industrial, but the TR, I don't know what TR class is, but okay, it's being used as residential. So,
It is.
check with the municipality where the property is, see what the use is. Contact the planning department in that municipality if you have questions. I would get it in writing if you can,
Yeah.
so you got record of it. What you don't want is somebody buying a house, using it for daycare, using it for whatever kind of industrial you could use that for, and then it be zoned wrong, or they're in violation of zoning. That happens more so when you're dealing with commercial properties, but typically residential is going to be allowed in most zonings there. Any other questions on zoning? Look up the HOAs and covenants and restrictions. Your homeowner should have them. You can contact the HOA, they should have them. I have cheated before and looked at other MLS listings for that neighborhood and picked them up that way. So there's several different ways to do it. You can find them with the county. The problem with the county is they can be old and they may not be updated. So make sure you get an updated copy. All right, that's your homework before you go to the appointment. Anybody think of anything else I'm missing?
Yeah, can we use the square footage off of tax records?
You cannot.
Oh, darn it, why not?
Melissa asked if we could use square footage off of tax records, and we just talked about tax records and how accurate they are not, right? They are not very accurate. I mean, there's tax records out there that don't have the second story of a house on it. So a lot of them actually. So no, you cannot go off of that.
Or an old list.
Can't go off an old listing. Very true.
Assuming they're correct. I've had good reason to go way off in the last.
If you pull Realist, sometimes it'll show you what the tax records show for square footage and what the last MLS shows. And if those numbers are off, better raise a red flag for you to start looking, why are my numbers off? Did they add square footage? Did the agent count square footage that shouldn't be counted? So there's a lot there with, yeah, be careful. Hire a professional if you don't know how to do it yourself. Even if you hire a professional, you're still responsible for what they report. So be very, very careful. And if anybody needs a copy of the little yellow book that the state gives out, or state has, I've got a bunch of them in my office. I'll be glad to share with you.
We also have them in dot loop. Measurement booklet.
We got the measurement guidelines in dot loop as well.
Yep.
So you can't have my yellow books. All right, your appointment toolbox. Let's get ready to go to the appointment. Your laptop or your notebook. Don't leave home without it, right? Your measuring tools. Where's that discrepancy coming in at? Why is tax record showing 1,700 square feet and last listing showed 2,100 square? Inquiring minds want to know, right? So let's go find out. What kind of measuring tools do you have? Alicia said a big old, I don't know what that is.
It's a really big measuring thing.
It's
that
a
pulls out with a little
100-foot measuring tape,
I
right?
see it.
And I have a laser measure. It costs $30 at Lowe's, which is a fantastic tool to measure the inside. To measure bonus rooms and garages and things like that. So make sure you got your tools. All of your paperwork, your listing agreement. You're working with real estate. Your property disclosures, which would be what? Residential property disclosure, mineral oil and gas,
Older than 1978.
could be lead-based paint, right? Yep. Your MLS info sheet. This is usually where people are like, I've never heard of that before. Anybody in here not heard of that? Just made fun of you, Pat, so you probably won't raise your hand.
Whatever.
Take it with you. It took me a while to learn, but I took it with me and filled out the information while I was there. Actually, while the client is filling out the property disclosure. And that way I don't have to call them back and say, is your range gas or electric? Are you on a crawl or a slab? Because you look like you don't know what you're doing when you have to call them back. It makes you look more professional if you're prepared. Let's just phrase it positively. Your lockbox, your sign, and your camera. If you're taking your own pictures, if you're taking them with a cell phone, I will hunt you down and throw paper at you. Don't take them with your cell phone, please. Any questions about your appointment toolbox? Anything else you take? Some people may take dog treats because they have dogs. I don't. Stuff for the kids to play with. I don't do that. I got a light on my phone, maybe. Yeah, that's probably not a bad idea to have a powerful flashlight to, if you're brave enough, pull down, look up in the attic, make sure nothing's been set on fire. I've ran into that before, where the listing, the client didn't tell me about it because they moved in after it happened, and the home inspector came and found the house had been on fire before. So yeah, that wasn't good. But yeah, use the pull down, shine a light, look, see if there's any moisture, any burnt spots. I'm not going in a crawl space, so what I can see from the door is what I see. But maybe I need a stronger light. I can see a little bit further, right? All right, let's get to the appointment. Field rapport with your folks, and I put shoes in parentheses because I was trained by Kay Dover. Take your shoes off when you go in someone's house. It shows a sign of respect. And some cultures, it's expected. So I think it just shows an extra level of respect for the folks if you do that. So I guess we should go back and make sure you don't wear socks with holes in them. I should put that on my. Make sure if you don't already have the working with real estate sign, make sure you get it signed immediately.
And only the new form.
Only the new form.
Not use the
Don't
old
use your
ones.
pamphlets. If you got pamphlets, throw them away.
Yes.
Yeah. Make sure you're using a new form. We're supposed to start those July 1st of this year.
That's required, right?
Yeah, that's a
Permission.
requirement. That's not
us
a
saying you
recommendation.
should.
That's not a recommendation. That's a
You get
requirement.
audited and you've got old ones signed after July 1st.
Yeah,
Not
not good. Revisit expectations. Make sure you're driving those home. Here's what's going to happen with the home inspection. Here's what's going to happen with the appraiser. You don't have to be home for either one of them. Make sure you tell them what's going to happen during showings. How long do you want showings to be? How long in advance of showings do you need notifications? Things like that. Who's the right person to contact for showing? Husband, wife, daughter, son, whoever. Revisit those expectations. Let's get down to the paperwork. Do your paperwork. I always start off with the easy ones: mineral oil and gas, lead-based paint if it's applicable. I'll do the listing agreement next, and then I'll do the property disclosure last. Is this the most painful one? I'm talking, so Melissa LaCroix asked, do you do paperwork or do you do electronic? It's a great question. I don't do electronic because I want, unless it's like a video conference or a phone call, I want to make sure they understand what they're signing. So that's a great question. I don't want to, North Carolina is what, is it 9 pages for listing agreement? Or I don't know what it is now. I don't want them signing a 9-page listing agreement and they have no idea what they're signing. Because if you didn't explain it to them, Raleigh's going to take their side immediately, not you. So yeah, most of mine are in person. Yeah. Fill out listing agreement, then I'll let them do the property disclosure so they can sit there and I'll explain what yes, no, and no representation means, and then I will go do my MLS sheet. So I don't influence them in any way. Make sure I know what the house looks like, make sure I know what agents are going to ask. The one in Rock Hill I went to, there was a water stain on the ceiling in the bathroom. I said, what's that about? And they told me everything had been repaired. I'm like, all right, you're going to get questions on it. Just got to know the answers to it. What's your marketing plan? How are you going to market it? Don't just say, what were the 3 Ps we learned at Keller Williams? Place a sign in the ground, put it on the MLS and pray. Don't do those. There was 4 Ps and I can't remember what the 4th one was. Prospect,
Am I
maybe.
making that up?
I like that. Let's go with that. Prospect. So you're going to talk to, I've got connections with, hate to say it, but Open Door, Knock. I know some of those agents, Mark Spain. If I get a house built in a neighborhood with a decent age on it, I can contact them. Would y'all be interested? Might get you an offer really quick if that's what they're looking to do. Make sure you're giving them your value proposition. Why shouldn't they have listed with Mark Spain and with Open Door, all these other yahoos? Well, here's what I'm going to do. Here's the time I'm going to spend. Here's the money I'm going to spend. I'm going to spend money on professional photographies, even though it may be $100 or whatever it is. I'm going to spend money on getting it professionally measured so we know the exact square footage. Again, you don't have to tell them your list of costs. You just tell them, I'm going to pay for it, or you don't have to pay for it. Makes you look like you're invested in this and not just putting sign in the ground and praying, right? I always like to play up the professional photography. So what if it's Jeremy Aldridge's wife? She gets paid, so she's a professional and she does fantastic work. They
What's
don't,
her name?
Nikki Aldridge. But they don't have to know that how much she charges or what I'm paying. Just let them know, look, I got to line up my photographer, get them scheduled. And that kind of sets in motion. All right, he's working for me. He's invested. I got to get my crap in a row. And so he can, first of all, so his photographer can come down and do her work. And so I'm not dragging my feet too. So it's kind of dual purpose. Any other questions on or comments on marketing plan? What other marketing, how else do you market these days? If I get one in my neighborhood, I'm putting it on a postcard and sending them out because I market heavily in my neighborhood. Social media, how do you quantify that to a client to say I'm doing more than the next person? Because everybody posts houses. Look at my new listing, How do you-
Page, I'll, like a business page, and I'll boost the post.
Okay, so you're paying for advertising. So let them know that I'm paying for advertising. Yeah.
Into the special private realtor site, like the Charlotte one.
Mhm.
So you're getting specifically realtors.
Mm-hmm. Targeted markets, right? I'll use social media to specifically target persons that may be interested. Word it some ways so they know you're not just sticking a sign in the ground and praying that sells. What else are you doing marketing wise? Anything? You having to do anything? Are you?
Oh, all before,
You still do them?
I have recently, I did them a lot for a
Yeah,
while.
yeah.
But then COVID, I haven't done it. Since COVID. I don't know. Well, we've had enough. Haven't had a need of getting people in the house. So
Right.
we sell them in a weekend. So
Right.
I'm kind of like, they don't always want a ton of extra people. other
Yeah.
than scheduled
Yeah.
appointments. So, no, but that has been in the past. I've done that.
Has open houses ever worked for y'all to sell a house? It works
But
for
the
you to
seller
get
doesn't
buyers.
know that.
I
Seller
know,
doesn't know
right? Yeah, good point. Good point. Anybody else?
I do explain how it syndicates out. I mean, I make a point to explain, this syndicates out to Zillow.com. It's stolen everywhere. I specifically target Leonard, our own realtors. And so I make a plan to explain. It's not just, I put on my last, explain what that means.
Mhm.
And so that goes a long way, I believe.
Okay.
Because most of them are looking for houses on Zillow and
Mhm.
Trulia, all the different ones. So that means a lot that they know their house is gonna be there. And then I always check to make sure it's on. And
So Melissa said that she makes a point of explaining where, once it hits the MLS, where it goes. So Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, everybody's site. I mean, I think at Keller, they told us it was 348 websites theirs went to. I don't know if that's applicable to what they do now, but if you think about where all IDX goes, I mean, it's a ton of websites. So that's a good idea, explaining where your marketing's going and where they can see it at and the time frame they can see it. Because if you tell them it's all right, your house is live, well, I'm looking on Zillow and I don't see it. 48 hours, right? Up to 48.
Some,
People recently, I don't see it yet. I'm like, give it a day or two.
Yeah. So we'll be under contract before it goes.
But yeah,
It gets on Zillow.
yeah.
So yeah, make a point of explaining that part too. That's a great catch. You will get that question. And then lastly, how are you going to follow up with them? And this is probably more applicable in the market we were in 18 months ago or 2 years ago. But if the house doesn't sell, how often are you going to communicate with them? How are you going to communicate with them? Is it text, call, email, written letter, carrier pigeon? I mean, how are you going to do it? I like Heather Littrell taught me. She does hers. I think every Friday she follows up with her sellers that are active. So you're constantly talking to them, say, here's what's happened. Here's what's happened in the market. Here's what's happened in your neighborhood. You got one not selling. Look, this house a block over sold from you. The house beside of you sold. It's telling you your price too high, have those conversations. Find out the best way to contact. I love to text. I would rather text than anything else in the world because I just don't like talking in person, I guess. So, hey, can I text you? What time's a good time to text? And then that leaves it open for, well, I turn my phone off at 8 o'clock at night because I'm putting my kids to bed, and I turn it back on at 8 after they go to school. All right, that's a perfect segue into, I'm going to manage my time. You're not going to run it for me. It's the basic, what you're telling them, right? You're not going to run me ragged at 11 o'clock at night because my phone ain't going to be on. Set those expectations. You're setting them for the client, but you're also setting them for the client for yourself. Lastly, safety. If you feel funny, leave, right? If you feel awkward, leave. Make sure you are set up where you can leave. Don't get pinned in a room. Don't get pinned in the driveway. Park on the road, park pointed away, don't park headed towards a cul-de-sac, park headed out of the development. Things like that. Don't put yourself in an awkward situation where you can't get out of. Don't wear 4-inch heels because you can't run in them. Most people can't run in them, I guess. Things like that. Remember, if you feel awkward at all, you don't have to take the listing. Tell them you're going to come back with another agent, come back with your husband or your bodyguard. Don't do it just so you can get business, because it may not end up very well. Any questions on the appointment? All right. I'm working with real estate. Make sure you explain it first as we talk. One of the first things I tell them, it's not a contract. It's a requirement from the real estate commission that I explain this to you. What part do you explain to them? Now we got 2 forms, one for buyers and one for sellers. Do you explain both of them? Do you explain one of them? What do you do? You can't answer. Whichever one pertains to them, right? If you're going to do a buy and sell, you explain both of them. If you're going to do just to buy or just to sell, then only do the one that's applicable to them. Make sure you're checking off the boxes on the form that we offer. That's not for the client to sign or to fill out. That is for you, the agent, to sign and fill out. So dual agency, buyer agency, seller agency. What, you got a question?
No, I was gonna say the video they put out about that says to check every box that could potentially
Yes.
apply. So obviously you're the buyer's agent, you check that box. If there's a possibility our firm could be a dual agent or dual agency in that transaction, then check that box as well. If that happens and you will only be the designated agent and you're not going to consider taking both sides, then check the designated agent box also. Basically, it sounds like we should just be checking almost every box except for seller sub-agent
Right,
box, essentially.
exactly.
It's how they've explained it.
Yep. What if they won't sign it? What do? Punch them in the face and make them sign it?
I'll write on there that
Roundhouse
they
kick 'em.
sign it, date it.
Refuse to
Yeah,
do
make
this
sure you put
sign.
on there that they refuse to sign and date it. And keep a copy for your records, right, Melissa?
Correct. You keep that paper if you want to, but put it in dot loop.
Yeah.
You ever have trouble? Do you ever have clients get a little befuddled with the dual agent, like
Yes.
explaining that it's always a hiccup, always a hiccup. And I
Yep.
explain it as clearly, I mean, sometimes I just read it and explain it, and there's always a hiccup, especially if they haven't bought or sold in a while.
Yeah. I like to try to explain it to them as I'm going to do, if I'm a single seller's agent, I represent you and you alone, and nobody from my firm can come and show the house. We've got 135 agents in our firm. Now they can't show your house. So if you choose that, just realize you're taking 135 agents in this market. Now they can't show your house. If it's dual agency, then they can show it because your listing agreement is with the firm and not with me. I've not had a problem
They just,
understanding that part.
they just feel sometimes like, I don't actually have both the buyer and the seller side. How is that? And it's like, no, I represent you alone.
Mhm.
And this is a disclosure to
Mhm.
say, we're just letting you know that this is a possibility. To make it more, we're just disclosing that, but that private, I'm
Mhm.
sure that it's always.
people you work with. No, I think it's a good point. I mean, to reiterate that your information is,
That's part
it's
of the
private.
contract that I
It's part,
signed,
right.
yeah.
It's part of our old car, right? It's to see an old car, confidentiality. Yeah. You know, I don't practice dual agency myself. I won't do buy and sell anymore because of the liability. I would call somebody in here and say, hey, would you take this?
Yeah, I think that's-
Yeah, I don't do either one of them. I'm just like, well, I mean, I guess it'd be designated,
Designated would be.
yeah. But I explained to them I won't do dual. I'll never represent both the buyer and the seller. That's just me. That's my personal belief. All right, revisit expectations, timing of how things are going to happen. If it hits the market at 5 o'clock on Thursday, there's a chance you may have a showing at 6 o'clock on Thursday. How our showing's going to work, again, make sure you get their approval on showing time. How far out do they need notification? Make sure all the days are approved. I had the one in Rock Hill that I hadn't listed yet. I said, when are we going to be able to show the house? She's like, maybe between 3 and 5, Monday through Friday. I'm like, no, that ain't going to work. And that's exactly what I told her. Like, no, ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna work. Make sure you have that conversation. Make sure they're okay with it. What our offer is going to look like. Make sure you tell them I got to present any and all to you. So if I'm pricing your house at 250 and somebody gives me an offer for 100, I still got to present it to you. Don't get mad at the messenger. Okay. That's when I like to explain to people, you know, some people still believe they can get a deal on a house. And so they're fishing to see if they can. How's negotiations going to work? Well, you know, negotiation just isn't about price point. It's about due diligence, earnest money, closing date, due diligence date. What are you going to leave? What are you not going to leave? Are you going to buy a home warranty? Repairs, yeah. So this is a good time to explain what all is entailed in negotiation. Then talk to them about due diligence process and home inspection. So as a seller, they don't have to fix a thing, right? In North Carolina. But you got to realize the buyer may walk, right? They have a whole list of things and they're not going to fix anything. Buyer might get up and leave. Or you can tell them we'll take X off the price and we won't do any repairs. Yeah, a lot of older folks like to do that because they don't want the hassle of having to schedule it, get the work done, blah, blah, blah. So then explain to them about closing. And I didn't think I'd have to explain this, but evidently I did. You've got to be out, you should be out before the walkthrough. All right, any questions about the appointment? See, really, we're just setting expectations, what's going to happen. We talked about these. MLS info sheet. I'm going to drive it home again. Make sure you do it. Makes you look professional. Make sure you walk around the house and look. See what's going on. Are the floors slanting? So wonder why. How old's the house? Now, I'm not asking you to be an engineer. Okay, that's not your job. But if the floors are slanting, maybe you ask them, hey, did you notice the floors are slanting? Wonder why. That house was built in 1920, odds are the floors are going to slant because it's an old house. But if it's built in 1995, you may want to ask that question. Any other comments on paperwork? Feel like we hit that pretty good. Anybody online got any questions? I see Stephanie's awake. All right. Lastly, your marketing plan. What is yours? How do you market a property? Stick an MLS and let it go out to all those websites. Is that it? Maybe. I'm going to use it, especially if it's in a neighborhood, like a decent size. I'm going to use it as a chance to try to get some more listings. I've had a lot of luck doing that. A lot of success. I shouldn't say luck. Send out postcards, just listed, or coming soon, just listed. And then, of course, nowadays, unless it smells like cat pee, I mean, it'll go under contract pretty quickly. And then you send out an under contract postcard. Then you send out a closed postcard. So you're hitting them 3 or 4 times within a 30-some day period. They're going to know your face, right? They're not going to know your postcards. That's mine. I don't know what yours is, but mine's, I've had, it was Prospects Plus, and now it's Markful. I think
Okay.
House of Magnets, and I don't know if they merged or somebody bought them or what it is. But, they've got different postcard campaigns you can use. I make sure all of mine look alike. So if I'm sending out 4 within 30-some days, they all look the same. They may have a different, of course, they're going to have a different message. One says, literally all I'll change is active, under contract, closed. I'll just change that. So they know when they get that postcard who it's from. You're just going to do it once, you're wasting your time. Send out 1 postcard. What type of property is it? How are you marketing that property? Is it a condo? Is it a commercial? Is it in an industrial area of Landis? I didn't know they had an industrial area, but open houses. Are you going to do open houses? Melissa just loves open houses, don't you? Social media. How are you going to market it on social media? I think there's very few agents out there that do a good job of marketing on social media that are consistent. I like to see what Allen Tate sends out with their listings and stuff because it's all branded the same and you immediately know it's an Allen Tate advertisement. I think they do a really good job with that. I wish I did a better job, but I don't. Wildly inconsistent. Are you going to print anything, any kind of print materials? Are you going to mailbox stuff? Hand them out at the airport. I don't know what kind of what kind of marketing you could do with that. Or magazines like Melissa. Yeah, Melissa talked about using magazines. Maybe that's it. How you want to do it. There's magazines for different types of properties, farm and land. There's horse properties. I think it's something like that. Yeah. No, field and stream. No, but there are different types of publications for different types of properties. So.
No, I mean, I didn't, but all of mine still depend on agents from
Yeah.
Like, so it's kind of like.
Right. Yeah. Anybody else have anything differently they do to market listings? Anybody online? Can y'all think of anything different you use to market your listings? be honest, usually we don't have to market much, right? But you better not get out of the habit of marketing. Because there's gonna come a day when we're not selling stuff in 18 hours.
Well, marketing plan, and I think a marketing plan with marketing dollars, where you put your dollars, and just because I've just done the beginning thing, is a ton of, so my marketing plan as far as the financial piece is pouring into my database of already, that people that I've already got. So I know we're talking about specific with a listing agreement
Mhm.
and with a house, but it's also taking the people in your database. That's what it's cultivating that relationship with the seller specifically to know that you want them to refer you, right?
Mhm.
As far as marketing and selling their home, I mean, part of it that my marketing dollars go to my database.
Okay. How do you change that around and sell it to a seller?
So,
I have a database
yeah, true.
and I'm on market to
I-
specific
yeah,
marketing. thing.
Other people that I have, but also a firm is an example of a property specific I've been into, or that might have a buyer that's looking for this type of property. That's a more personal level of, yeah, I know someone who might, or other
Mhm.
buyers. It makes it a little more personal than just MLS.
Mhm. That's a good
And
point.
your point is to cultivate a relationship
Mhm.
with the seller, also in addition to selling their home.
I don't have a database other than my spreadsheet yet. Talking to my coach yesterday, and he's like, "You should have 2,000 names in there." Now, actually, I give him that number. I'm like, "I should probably have 2,000." I had 700 when I was at Keller Williams in mine. Just never used it. And so, guess what I got to do? I got to build my database. So, yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, we narrowed down our database to we qualify them, and you focus on the ones who really are going to be.
Yeah, we're going to grade it.
Yeah,
Like,
grade
yeah,
it.
yeah, A, B, C, D.
Because that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
very helpful to me. I
Right,
actually
yeah.
pulled a lot out.
But you can still tell them, look, I got a database of 2,000 names.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm going to market to the ones specifically that are looking to buy within the next 6 to 18 months, whatever, however it is. But you can use that database as a marketing tool. We talked about this follow-up. What's the best way to contact your sellers? Text, email, call, carrier pigeon, smoke signals, whatever it is. What's the best time? When are you available? If they're working a 9-to-5 job, can I call you while you're working? Can I shoot you a text and say, are you available? And then have them call you. What's the best? Just find out what the best way to do it is. How often? Here's how often I'll be in contact with. So, Cheryl, I'm going to sell your house, and it's not 2021, it's 2017. Okay. So I'm going to provide you with weekly updates on Fridays. That's when I call my sellers. And I'll tell you what's going on in the market, any activity we've had if we're not already under contract. That way, she knows to expect a call. She knows I'm working, right? Because I'm going to call her. And then I'm going to give her updates. Here's what's sold in your neighborhood. Here's what's sold in your price range. Here's the feedback we've gotten. Again, they know you're working. They know you're working. That's why open door and knock and those folks are so popular, because they don't think we work. Me and JR went and looked at a property in China Grove for us to buy and develop. And the guy showing us around said, yeah, them blank realtors, all they do is stand there with their hands out at the closing table. I didn't tell him I was a realtor, but just kind of smiled and went on. We didn't buy the property, but yeah. So that thought's out there. That's why Mark Spain and those guys can do what they do, because people don't think we have value, but we do have value. Tell them your value. Show them you're working. Discuss price adjustments. We don't have to have that discussion right now, do we? Guess what? There's coming a day when you're going to have those discussions again. When all those forbearances hit, whenever that's going to be, may happen. I don't know. I kind of wonder if
You have a lot of emails about training for that.
Oh, huh. I've got my SFR designation.
No, this is training.
That's brutal.
I
Don't do-
keep getting emails for when it's gonna happen.
I'm wondering if they're just drumming up business.
Oh, yeah,
The people, I sell REOs for a small bank around here, and like we haven't seen the uptick yet. We know it's coming, but we haven't seen it. So it's on its way, but you wonder, are the big institutional buyers going to buy them all up? And so we won't even know they came, you know? But there's going to come a day when you're going to have to talk about price adjustments. You've got to be ready to talk about that. Those are uncomfortable conversations. How would you do that? If I'm selling Cheryl's house and she wanted to price it at $250, but I told her to price it at $199, all right, let's do it. How are you going to have that conversation? Well, first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna send Cheryl an email before we sign it. Here's my recommendation. I'm gonna refer back to that email, like, I ain't gonna say told you so, but in a nice, smiley, rainbows and unicorn way. Here's what I recommended, and the market's showing us that we're priced too high. We need to make an adjustment to our position. Put it that way, because if you say price decrease, it's like, ugh, I hate those words. Price improvement, right? Price improvement or a market adjustment. Call it something different than a price decrease. That hits hard. That's a pride thing there. But go ahead and have those conversations. So what if I list Cheryl's house today and we have another 9/11, or we have another 2008? Which I don't think we will, but what if it happens? What if, I don't know, Apple goes bankrupt? I don't know, you know, a big firm causes our economy to slow down temporarily. It could happen. Be prepared for it. Safety. We talked about this earlier. I'm going to hit it again. Don't put yourself in a bad situation. Take someone with you to a listing. Okay, I don't care if it's another agent, your husband, wife, bodyguard, I don't care. Take someone with you. Never do an open house by yourself. Melissa, you did you?
I haven't, but I put myself in.
Okay, don't do that either. Parking, we talked about that. Don't park in the driveway. Don't get blocked in. Don't park on the road pointing toward the end of a cul-de-sac. When you're walking through, always let them go first. Don't let them behind you. Don't let them go in. Don't go into a, call it a dead end bedroom where there's no other forms of egress. You can't get out. Or a dark basement. Yeah.
I'll say, I have experience.
Don't go in a dark basement,
Make
Melissa.
a phone call quick, someone.
Yeah. I don't mind letting clients go places I don't want to go. Yeah. I haven't run into those situations, but I can imagine what y'all face. Yeah. Don't get cornered. Any other safety tips you have? I think of. We do have safety protocols online in .loop. If you need them, there's 56. There's a document's got 56 safety tips on there in .loop. If you haven't reviewed it lately, review it. Get to know it.
Somebody's calling, why, always meet them somewhere. Get their.
I would meet them in
information.
public first. Yeah, meet them here, get their information.
And
Get their-
Google it and see, because I did that on one that from the last company that was hey, can you show me? The guy was a sex offender. So I made my husband go with me.
So Alicia said, Google them, Facebook stalk them, find out who they are. That's a good point. Ask for their driver's license, take their car tag down. Usually if you do one of those two steps and they're creepy, they're gonna go away. All right. What did you learn about working with sellers today? What are your thoughts on working with sellers? Yeah, you love them, hate them, despise them. Depends on the seller. All right. When you're comparing buyers and sellers, who would you rather work with?
Where they want to buy a
All
house.
right, Melissa, that was not one of the options.
I like them both, but
I do not.
I had one that it took about a year and a half to find the right house based on what they needed. And we would literally look at house way over on one side of Iredell County to the other side of Rowan County. And it took a year and a half.
Mhm.
And
It's a referral.
it was just,
I'm gonna refer it to an agent I don't like.
Oh, really?
Oh, so we're married.
oh gosh.
You got a minute after class? I'm kidding, I'm kidding. I like sellers because it frees your time up. To me, you don't have to traipse from western Iredell County to Granite Quarry or, High Rock Lake.
Well, in this market too, I mean, come on, sellers, fun. I mean, getting all the
Yeah.
offers in is the ball. I mean, it really is kind of fun. Versus the buyers losing offer, you know what I mean? Well, so in this market, clearly
I wouldn't say fun.
I have
To
fun
me,
with
it's
it.
nerve wracking because what if you don't get enough offers? They're expecting 10 offers. They only got 2. Why didn't we only get 2? Should we leave it on the market a little longer? I'm not being greedy, but I hate those comments because I just want to punch someone when they say that. I'd rather work with sellers. I think your time's more efficiently spent with sellers than buyers. Just my opinion, especially in this market. You're exactly right. Especially in this market, unless they really, I always get anybody that contacts me to look at new construction because they can find more inventory
I've done
and
that
what they want.
3 times recently.
I found
And
my
you're
buyers
right.
in the beginning have now turned into sellers, and I want to buy something
Mhm.
else. So,
Yeah.
Mhm.
they do become sellers.
Right. Benefits of working with sellers we just talked about, frees up your time. Usually less stressful, unless they're crazy.
Exactly.
What's your biggest challenges working with sellers these days? Expectations. That's why we set our expectations up front, right? I don't know. I've talked to people and I've heard 2 different stories. What I've seen lately is we're not getting 8 to 10 offers. We're getting 1 to 2. Still going for what you're asking, but you're not. I think the market's kind of leveled off. It's not going crazy. I tell my folks that because they're not hearing that message. What you see in the news is housing prices are out of the roof. And they can't afford them, blah, blah, blah. Make sure you're setting those expectations. Look, here's
CNA's
what we're
prove it.
seeing. Huh?
CNA's prove it as far as price and list price and
Yeah,
how much above the data
yeah.
as it's changed.
The data is there, but you're always looking in the rearview mirror. So what we went through is let's chase that price, right? Let's price it at 250 when it should be 225. We can't do that anymore. I don't feel like we can do that anymore.
No, but you still see quite a bit of it.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
you see, I mean, if you real, like, not the ones from whatever's close, the most recent, I was going with the most recent, is that does show that there's not that big of a difference between list price
Right,
and sales price.
right.
And that's what I use is, yeah, here it is from 3 months ago, here it is from 2
Mhm.
weeks ago. And they're to kind of get the expectation down a little bit.
I'm noticing less due diligence money
Yes,
on the offers, the contracts that are.
compared to
coming
this
through.
summer.
Met with,
Yeah.
and this may be the price point, depending on price point you're in. I met with a lender yesterday. He said he just did a deal with $150,000 due diligence,
Oh, hell.
What was the price point?
1 point something million.
Well,
Yeah.
Joe Ricky with Mortgage Right, he did one for $150,000 for a $600,000 house. Yeah, and that wasn't too long ago. So,
And
I
the
just-
agent,
you're
I would
committed
be
at that
so
point.
sick in my stomach. if
well,
that
I
client
had
was out.
one,
Yeah.
I had one
You
that,
don't know. You don't know.
and this was
I
a
would
buyer,
think of
so
that.
buyer, but she did 10,000 for $283,000 house, what it ended up being. But set your expectations, right? Same deal. Look, lady, no offense, but you just sold your soul because, and if that's what you got to do when you love the house, great. But here's what to expect going forward. He doesn't have to do a single repair,
you
and
don't
he
know what the
won't do a
inspection-
price reduction. If it doesn't appraise, you're not getting a price reduction. Understand that before I hand them this check. And she did. And the house was garbage, but she took it. And so yeah, again, set your expectations of what's going to happen. All right, any questions from anybody? Any questions or comments? Hopefully that helped you. Really, the takeaways, set your expectations up front so they know what to expect. Prepare just like it markets 2017 because it's eventually going to go there. 2017 wasn't a bad market. It just wasn't on crack like it is now, you know, so. All right, folks, that's all I got. I appreciate y'all showing up online. Good to see you. Have a good one. If you have questions, shoot me an email or a text, and I'll talk to y'all later.
Stop the recording.
Yeah.